And the fourth and the final game, so it's another shot of the Almogavars. I'm not sure if this was the same guys as last time, or maybe the other ones had a flag. Can't quite remember. But yeah, tough old guys. Let's see if they manage to do anything in this final game. When then they're actually fighting a Kingdom of Sicily army, very similar army to mine, but a very similar army to the one that pasted me in game 2. This is a different sort of combination. You've got a big chunk of 5 impetuous knights in the first one, a little bit of padding, a little bit of skirmishers to go in front of them. The second one is knights and the mixed foot, much as I love them from beating me in the previous game, and a couple of light horse there. And then in the final one, you've got again 2 more knights, so you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 knights here. You've got 2 lots of mixed foot in blocks of 2. You've got a single spearman to pad it out, and you've got a load of light infantry. So this is much more knighty. The other one was pretty damn knighty, but this one's very knighty, and its power is sort of split across the 3 commands. It doesn't have that small filler command that the second list did with just some of those mediocre bows. So let's have a look and see how this pans out. Again, we're on the waterfront table. This isn't a terrain feature. This is just a lovely cloth. But it looks like my guys are just coming out of the sea, possibly landing in Palermo or somewhere in Sicily or something like that. Of course, always good to see the volcano impassable landing on table, and that's probably a pretty big bit of rush. So you've got here spearmen and mixed shooters on both flanks, chunk of knights in the front, few little skirmishy people over there, but it's a big old block of knights in the front and a bit more knights there. What have I done? I put the crossbows and the Almogavars into this big piece of rough terrain, knowing they'll be pretty safe or almost invulnerable there. Line it up with spearmen, and then I'm sort of trying the same tactics really, is just sort of spearmen and knights and spearmen in this gap between the impassable and the terrain, and then see what the Almogavars and the crossbows can do. And there's a bit of kind of cavalry on cavalry action happening there. So what starts is these guys obviously do start rushing forwards. They've got, with the bowmen at the front, that does give them quite a lot of range to interdict these very similar bizarre cavalry, very similar to mine. Light horse, I think everybody's bought the Fireforge and the Gripping Beast mix sets and getting ready. So I think we may even have evaded them away here, because otherwise that guy's been carrying a hit from the previous round. They probably came forward and then came back with this strong shooting. Over here on this flank, the enemy the Sicilians are going to have to potentially have to come past this impassable. So either these guys will be able to stand here and shoot with impunity, or they'll come out and they may be able to do some sort of attacking. This guy's just driving forward because he can do. I've got my spears. I'm not quite linked up this formation. I think the whole lot's going to have to drift to the right a little bit. And right down the middle, yeah, this looks like me trying the same lottery that didn't really work in the previous game, and slightly annoyingly against a better set of knights. There's more elite knights there than I've got. I've only got these 2 orange ones as elite, I believe, and that's kind of it. But that's sort of why I'm pushing these spearmen up first, see if I can do a better job against these handful of knighty cavalry types and these spearmen over here first than I've done in some of the previous games. So yep, the armies are really going for it. They're going forwards. My guys are all out and drying their toenails and things like that. Now they're out of the river or landed on the beach, and the spearmen pushing up on both flanks, and you can kind of see what's going to happen here. It's full on, isn't it? It's all committed, 100%. Everybody's got a bacon attitude towards this one, and that little light horse command has been driven away just by the threat of the shooting of here, and so they're off going back. But let's see what that allows me to do now that semi-threat, or I suppose there's some ambush markers there, so there may be something possibly. And but instead, let's ignore that threat. Let's get the Almogavars and the crossbows over here and start pinging away at these couple of knights and creating a threat on the end of this mixed spear line, because my army does stretch out quite a lot wider. But I do, after the last game, need to be very careful about what these knights might do to me. And the Norman pudding bowl haircut is telling the guys, encourage them to go forwards a little bit. So over here, as I said, this lot have kind of wheeled forward. It looks like I've split the spearmen up to give them a little bit more resilience, but they're just aiming some shooting here, allied or helped by this guy as well. Just see if we can erode these, knocking a little bit of their confidence with some shooting will do wonders. They're not the best combat troops because they're mixed bow or mixed crossbow and shield guys and spear guys, sorry. So if I can do a bit of damage to them, they suddenly almost become about, not much better than my bowmen really, once they've taken some damage. And then this, still spears and knights against knights on this end. Can I draw those guys away? Let's see how that pans out. So the Sicilians are coming forwards, getting some nice little figures in there. I think those are they footsore or gripping. I think it might be gripping beast coming in against my resin guys here, getting ready, exchanging some shooting. But these knights are just fully committed. They're not fussed about what's going on really at all, and it looks like the line has kind of bowed out to match mine as well. So we're getting ready for a clag, but as it sort of bows out, that does create these potential extra overlaps for me, just as it gets a bit more stretched, and because I've managed to put some breaks in it. We'll see how that pans out. So over here they've actually allocated a couple of knights to support their spearmen, which suddenly means I'm a little bit outgunned. These guys will probably have to go back and join their friends, and see what happens there. And this light horse is sort of in a threatening position, but until someone's in combat, he can't really do a lot. If he charges in, they'll just bounce off really, and that will just be him off table evading or dead as soon as the guys turn around once the first round of combat's over. So here we go. It's all in. This is it. This is the night combat that you're looking for. Well, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knights all in, and there's mine in there against a mixed spearman. Everybody's in play here. They've not gone in that side, but this is pretty it. I've just got an overlap at both ends. This guy maybe must have been shot by the crossbowman. That's a spearman who's pushed up to neutralize this knight as well, protect these spearmen. But those knights are better quality than mine, so let's see how that pans out. And here we go. My spearmen against spearmen as well. Knights against some of the spearmen on this flank. Luckily, I've got these light horse reserves to create extra overlaps. And what goes on here? Bada boom! This is spectacular straight away. One set of knights straight through, just over the top, all the way through. I think that's even against one of my elite ones, because that's where the orange one would have been. But my elite one has also knocked a hole here, benefiting with the overlap. So straight away, there's all sorts of things. That's a 2-hit marker. Lots of damage being done there. Their general's urging them on. So it's all kicking off here, really, isn't it? So what else has happened here? It looks like I've had a sort of about turn in fortune from last time, in that these crossbowmen have now, looks like they've shrugged off an attack from an enemy knight, which now I know does happen from the previous one. My archers are struggling against the spearmen. I think it does look like I decided to give it a go with the light horse. He is dead, he is gone, he's no longer on table, but it has meant that they didn't join in this combat. It's given these a little bit more time to maybe survive while other stuff is happening elsewhere in the game, and opens up an opportunity for these guys, the javelinmen, to do something as well. But yeah, the fighting's going on in there somewhere, and this guy's still stabbing down at these supported spearmen. So over on the other side, I've fanned out a nice tidy line of all 4 spearmen all intermingled here, and these 2 knights are suddenly in a lot of trouble as to what to do, because you've got bowmen and crossbowmen in the rough terrain with the Almugavars ready to rush in as well. This is a proper trap. This is a obvious, completely obvious trap that it's straightforward to see, that makes it very difficult to attack without getting stuck on these, and then the Almugavars coming in. Their light horse have come back to help, but that's still going to be a very, very difficult thing, just because the archery that's being put out into these guys to kind of force them to do something really. I guess they can't just sit there for a long time, otherwise they'll just be plinked away by archery. So what's going on here? My crossbowers are pushing forwards, but my bowmen are just about hanging on with the help of 2 overlaps against this spear unit here. Looks like the javelinmen have decided to give it a go into the flank, see if they can do any damage to this mixed unit as well. The enemy knights are still ongoing, and over here, what have we got here? So this is the central combat. It looks like actually, it looks like my guys are now starting to get the upper hand. It's the overlap there, no overlap here, but he's doing well, but they're still in play. So these must be yellow 2-hit markers, I imagine. I've not picked up too many more. That's a single hit marker. That's a 2, that's a 3. So they're in a lot of trouble here. And he's a nice, interesting possibility. It depends whether this guy's an independent general or an included one. I'm not entirely sure. I suspect he might be included. and these guys have still not committed, but the Almugavars are now pushing forward, seeing the opportunity of this lot winning and all stepping forward as well to time that a little bit better. So over here you can see that slightly, even more clearly. So the bowman and the crossbowman and Almugavar have come out. The Almugavar is holding the attention of this knight. It's pretty risky, but he's taken an injury. We are Almugavar spearmen. So if this guy, but what that does is it means it forces them to force there, which if this guy chooses in will free him up to come straight through. So their ability to come round and protect this guy's flank is kind of over now that the Almugavars are staring him in the face, and hopefully we can drive off these light horse here as well. So what's going on here? Yep, it looks like another knight on the other side is gone, and I've stepped forward there. These guys have still yet to turn around. This is some pretty intense fighting, but there's another hole there developed. So actually there's really only these two knights here in play suddenly, and this one here. So this time it does look like I'm winning the knight on knight battle. Over on this flank by the volcano again, yep, the javelinmen look like they've won. They've gone through. Hitting someone in the flank obviously does work. It was somewhat mediocre, but the spearmen are finally crushed by bowmen. So this is just breaking through. I broke through there, they broke through there, I've broken through here. This guy is now struggling, but all in all, they're suddenly starting to look quite overwhelmed. I think possibly losing that light horse and turning the end of the spear line to give myself an overlap here and letting these guys get in may well be proving quite decisive. So in the middle of the table, well, there's a big dead pile over there, but all of a sudden there's a moment of calm as it suddenly looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by the looks of it. Knights have all been beaten by the combination spears and knights, and a couple of overlaps with the light horse in that second rank, forcing the knights to come through into a position in which they were slightly outmatched through the overlaps. Over here, the fighting is still going on. It looks pretty messy over there, but actually, yeah, it looks like that guy's rallied up from 2 down to 1. The generals involved, so yeah, these must be non-included generals. Possibly there's a knight who may even been shot completely away there, and this guy's suddenly got a terrible decision to take against this huge wall of spearmen. So what does this look like? Well, I think this looks like everybody chasing everybody at once, really. This guy's broken through finally, but my knights, these enemy knights presumably came to help whatever he's breaking through, but that has allowed suddenly, with winning in the middle, all of my knights are now free to come racing out into support people in the flank sector, and there's a real mess going on here. There's crossbowmen facing one way, spearmen, there's javelinmen in the back, there's a injured spearman. It's just a real melee of nonsense over there, with everybody fighting in different directions all at the same time for some pretty messy combat. But this is probably looks like the decisive moment. There's rears and flanks being hit by my guys much more often than the enemy are managing to do that. Over on this side, oh, these guys have come back. They've marched all the way around here and trapped the enemy light horse in front of 2 bowmen, so shooting from the front, shooting from the back. They're in the rough terrain. That's tricky. This guy's finally had to take a call on what he does, or it may even be that my spears have stepped up and the Almugavar, presumably as that knight must have been shot away, has suddenly been freed up to attack them in the flank as well, which allows my spearmen and the Almugavar to have a real good go. In fact, this may be towards the end of the game, because I suspect that's not normally a position that you'd include or put a general into combat unless it was pretty tricky, and that alignment of the general usually seems to signify that the general's included in combat. So those knights are on a bit of a valiant last stand here. And talking of last stands, you've got the spearmen been sort of done up by the javelineers. These spearmen here can't really fight in 2 directions against my crossbowmen, and even with this knight breaking through, are these guys going to collapse and take the army with it before he can do any more damage? Let's have a look. Boom. That knight over there now evaporated. My knights are racing through. These guys are unsurprisingly taking shooting hits, with everybody shooting them all ways around, and they're really stuck about what they can do now. So all of a sudden this whole chunk of the table is denuded, apart from these 2 injured guys. Probably from here all the way across is suddenly denuded of enemy troops, and that must be totting up pretty damn quickly. And yes, that's it. That is a victory for the Andalusians, with the Almugavars delivering some of the the final blows, and I guess a slightly better played game from my point of view in terms of sitting back and creating a kind of bowed situation for the enemy knights to charge into, which meant I was able to counteract their better ability, their better quality, with some overlaps and some pushing, particularly pushing through that bit of rough terrain to really create a flanking position and use it with the Almugavars, and also using the impassable on the other side to generate a flanking position as well. So it was all about just stretching the enemy army a little bit wider than it was able to go, and then getting into its flanks, which I think in retrospect was probably what I should have done on some of the other games. But on that note, that's probably the best time to finish up these 4 reports from what was an excellent fun 28mm competition down in deepest Devon in Plymouth in January 2023.